What you are about to see today is a very interesting video on Warren Smith, the Secret Scholars Society channel, where Warren Smith is looking at a video from another person who is openly fetishizing the idea of murdering a conservative. And he wonders aloud and poses the question, how could things have gotten this bad? How did this happen? And as I just finished sitting through one of the major left-wing playlists called the Alt-Right Playbook, and have just finished recording a video on this, I'm right now in a very good position to answer why and how things got this bad. Hopefully the full video will be out next week, where I will be going over all of the specific statements that led me to all of these conclusions, and showing you, in the left's own words, how things got this bad, and how it could not be any other way. But, let's get into it then, shall we?
I've learned from the Charlie Kirk killing.
This guy was sitting mere feet away from Konstantin Kisin during his debate with Destiny. When you hear what he has to say, it is scary to think how this could have gone.
So for a little bit of context here as well, Konstantin Kissinger is a British political commentator and one of the co-hosts of the Trigonometry podcast. He is most assuredly so on the right wing of matters. As a child, he was born in Russia, or the Soviet Union actually, in fact, at the time, I do believe. This probably inspired his wish to not see the return of that, and why he would not like to be ruled by communists yet again.
It was like fucking locked onto his eyes, and he kept like glancing down at me and then like breaking eye contact. Because I fucking hate the guy. I was just like, I wanted to kill him.
I stumbled upon this stream when I was just trying to research and understand the opposing view, and I was shocked by some of the things this guy was saying. Keep in mind, this guy was sitting in Konstantin's eye line.
And I think he got distracted by that and didn't pay attention to a single thing.
What I think that
Yes, it is just talk, but there is something more disturbing beneath the surface here.
And I was going to point out right off the bat here, this is not just talk. It isn't. The left has now demonstrated a will to carry out political assassinations repeatedly. Their talking heads are continuing to egg on violence in one form or another. Destiny, rather famously, of course, shortly after the Charlie Kirk assassination, said that conservatives need to be afraid to go to events. Afraid, of course, of being assaulted by left-wingers. This is also something we see go over again and again in the alt-right playbook. The idea that you do not speak to the right. You only interact with the right via left-wing media, which is only there to reiterate the point again and again that the right wing has no morality, that the right wing are just a bunch of idiot grifters who want nothing more than to ruin the world, to hear them say it. Seeing people now fetishize assault or murder of a conservative is merely the logical endpoint of all of this talk, which has, again, a very specific purpose.
He's openly talking about wanting to assassinate Konstantin. This could have gone very differently. He even has a box cutter or X-Acto knife.
Which I should have done. Stanley Blades just fucking sprinted up onto the stage, slash Konstantin in the fucking jugular.
But he wants to kill him. You can see the chat. They're all thinking the same thing, it seems. No one seems to be bothered by this because it has become so commonplace.
And nobody is bothered about this. Again, this is absolutely doctrine here, and it has gotten worse as the left has gotten more and more cornered. One of the biggest takeaways I got from the alt-right playbook was the initial optimism of the left wing. The left wing genuinely did believe that it was in a position of power and authority, that the future they envisioned was just over the horizon, and that the right wing wasn't even truly a danger at all. They were something to be rallied against and something to be defeated, sure, but they were all morons and idiots with no coherent point of morality or any view, really, of the world that could be made sense of. Then is literally a portion in the alt-right playbook where the creator states that he cannot form the beliefs of the right into a coherent world view, and he repeats over and over again that he does not believe they are moral actors. In fact, in the most commonly repeated argument, do not talk to the right wing, he explicitly states that, what was it? The best indicator that you cannot win a debate with a reactionary, e.g. conservative or anybody anti-left really, is that they tell you you can. This preempts the right wing coming out and saying, listen, I just want to talk. I am actually interested in trying to figure some of this out. Can we have a conversation? The left is already then assuming that this is nothing more than a debate tactic to win ground at the left's expense.
He knows he can do this. YouTube's not going to do anything.
Done. Sorted.
Now, I'm not sure where this was streamed, because he mentioned it was a stream. I also want to point out here as well, YouTube is listening all the time. There are AI bots up on streams listening to conversations all the time. I've had 2 recent streams where I've discussed the Canadian MAID program, and both of them have been demonetized for mentions of suicide. Even though I vehemently hold, of course, that the MAID program is murder. And that happens within minutes of speaking the words, and yet a man sitting there saying that he's going to run up on stage and slash somebody's throat rings no alarm bells. Now, this too is hardly a rarity, frankly, because we have seen for a very long time the left and the right do not play by the same rules. They never have, not during the entirety of this culture war conflict. The closest we have come is Twitter, where the rules for the first time are applied relatively evenly, and that has got the left wing in quite the outrage.
Prison forever on the one hand, and then I should have gone. Then I should have gone woke jihad. I should have gone for the white race or something. I don't know.
You could say.
Which also demonstrates another left-wing tactic, which is to give ridiculous reasons for the things they're doing, specifically again to antagonize the right, to try and come up with ways to try and somehow muddy the waters here, as this is also a very much so ingrained left-wing tactic. You will never find any of their speaking heads outright stating you should murder people. They will merely say things like, again in the alt-right playbook, we are at a point of no return. We are crossing the Rubicon, and you must now pick a point of moral principle upon which you will stand. Your point of no return. Or, well, in the case of Destiny, he does kind of say it outright, in that conservatives need to be afraid to go to conventions and gatherings.
Say, oh, okay, well, he just worded that poorly, it's just an expression, but he takes this much farther. Then he gets into, based on what happened to Charlie Kirk, this is what I have learned when it comes to how to kill conservatives.
No, I feel like my genuine psychopath thought that I've learned from the Charlie Kirk killing is, if you are going to assassinate a political target, then try to reduce the gore as much as possible so people can't sympathize with the bastard who's getting it.
This too, again, as ridiculous as it sounds, I need to drill down to this point here so that you truly do understand. Over the course of the last decade of left-wing propaganda, as they've begun to realize that they are not going to win this culture war with words alone, understand this. They believe They are being taken over by fascists. They believe Donald Trump is an evil tyrant. They believe the right wing is all fascist, or at the very least fascist adjacent, and thus in turn corrupted by fascism, as this is the intersectional way of thinking. If a portion of your movement, no matter how small, is fascistic or alt-right or white nationalist or whatever they use to justify it at that point in time, it's all tainted. They are of the actual opinion that the bad guys have returned, that the Nazis of World War II are on the verge of taking over complete cultural and political power, and when that happens, they do actually believe that there's going to be holocausts, mass extermination, they'll come for trans people, all of this stuff. These are beliefs that have not only been genuinely upheld for a very long time, but repeated ad infinitum and normalized until it is mantra. Not arguments, mantra. Literal reality. This is why we have terms like the transgender genocide, for example, on the left, to hype people up, to make them think it is now or never. That's how you arrive at this kind of extremism.
So you'd have to go up with like a cape and like cover him in a cape and do it cleanly under there, you know.
So nobody can sympathize with the bastard. Again, I want to make this very clear. The left hates you. It hates conservatives. I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating the point here. They hate you. They think you are terrible, the lowest of the low, the worst of the worst, barely better than an animal. And so the only compuncture there is about murdering a conservative is whether or not it might cause damage to the greater cause, whether or not the normal populace might look upon it and go, well, that was clearly not justified.
Like an abattoir.
So he's literally openly talking about assassinating political targets here. So the question is, well, why? That's what I wanted to understand. That's why I take the time to even look at these streams.
It's all like dog whistling, we need to secure a future for the white people.
He makes it very clear. His belief is Constantine is a racist.
And all it is appealing or dog whistling to the stupidest voters, like the dumbest 10% of people who happen to be racist as well. Stick up for racism.
But then he talks about the real problem here is the weak white culture of the UK.
We simply...
And again here too, the dog whistles. The dog whistles on the left are far louder and more strident than anything on the right at the moment, by far. And as for the term racist, this too is simply just a pejorative term the left uses. For example, in the alt-right playbook, it is made clear that there is no such thing as non-racism. Racism is inherent within being a white person. You cannot escape it. Even indeed those who are anti-racist are themselves still racists, and thus participating in white supremacy, etc., etc. This is all used as a simple justification against white people. And the thing he mentions about here as well, appealing to the dumbest 10% of people, this too is a point repeated ad infinitum. The idea that the opposition are just idiots. They don't understand that the left has their best ideas, their best opinions, now I'm blanking on the word here, best interests, there we go, in mind. They just don't understand that we need socialism. They're too stupid to understand that diversity is a strength, etc., etc., because again, as I previously mentioned, the left do not believe that the right has a functional moral system, a moral compass, or a cohesive worldview. They simply think you're being malicious. Or, best case scenario, too dumb to understand.
They don't have the white people stepping up and educating themselves in the right kinds of ways because of culture issues, I guess, because of the weak white culture.
He is the very thing he thinks he is fighting against. His entire analysis of Constantine's ideas are absolutely mischaracterized. He's not contending with them at all. And then he uses those ideas as justification.
Based on these
and this too is entirely deliberate. Again, they don't want to engage with the right. This man does not engage with Constantine. He doesn't care about Constantine. Constantine is a target. He is not a source of information. The left does not want to speak to the right. It is being constantly argued that it should not speak to the right. And if it ever does speak to the right, it must assume that anything and everything the right wing says is a lie or a tactic.
Fucking ideas for me to vote for the green candidate, you retard piece of shit, Constantine. I fuck like slap, mug, you mug.
Well, the thing.
This provides us a window into this mentality, into the psychology of people like this. It's important to understand. It's important to see.
We hadn't also at the same time had the doctrine.
A lot of this would be much easier to manage if I got on that stage, grab his fucking lapels, right, flip in, and fucking ip-on, bang, right over. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about right over my hip. Constantine's right over my hip. I've got his fucking lapel. Bang.
I genuinely don't understand it. Even if you disagree with Constantine, how could what he's saying upset you this much?
Because he is the opposition. Again, this needs to be hammered home so everybody begins to understand it, because I didn't want to believe it. Nobody has wanted to believe this for the longest time. It's been going on for a decade now, but they hate you. All of the dehumanization that occurred over the last decade, all of the constant calls that everyone on the right is white nationalists, they're all racists, they're all fascists, none of this was intended to be ironic. None of this was joking. It was all actually intentional, and if you genuinely do believe that you are living in a world where the Nazis are within months, weeks, days perhaps, of taking over and just going on a murder spree, what action is not justified in that scenario? That is the headspace that you need to get into to understanding what this guy here is thinking.
You're right. By the lapels, fucking hoof. Right, I'm talking bang. And his whole body just goes bosh into the fucking wood. That's what I'm saying.
People will claim this guy doesn't have a massive reputation, okay? But we see these same ideas reflected at a higher level. Literally just yesterday, I stumbled on a stream where Destiny's head moderator is trying to talk to Destiny because he is concerned, because he is seeing too many calls for violence in their Discord server, and he's beginning to worry that people aren't actually joking.
Yesterday, I think.
Oh, and this too. So now we move over to the left's thought leaders, right? Because this guy didn't come up with any of this on his own. This is not a reasoned position. The idea that the Nazis taking over does not hold water, and anyone who looks at what Constant Kissinger says can very clearly see that it isn't the case. He is a person arguing against authoritarianism, somebody who has had familial memories of the actual overreach of a tyrannical dictatorship regime. He does not want to reinstitute this in the West, nor does, well, most of the people on the right or in the center. This is not a popular opinion. The entirety of the far right has basically been eradicated for a very long time, to the point where being a Nazi is probably the second most negative thing you can conceivably be after a literal child rapist. That's where we are at. So, where does all of this come from? Well, here you have one of the talking heads right now, the man again that stated that conservatives should be afraid of going to events.
I think Destiny referred to it as like kind of school shooter vibes going on, as far as how people are talking in a way that makes people think that, like, not just radical and like, I'm so tired of people saying like, well, Trump did radicalize me, you should be radical under Trump. I'm talking about radical as in like gonna cause violence in a way that isn't what everybody thinks it is kind of way. And I know like your argument is like, well, people like Trump and things like that, like they can say this stuff openly, and like I completely understand that argument. This,
by the way, you might be wondering, wait, hold on. When did Trump say that we should start assassinating our political opponents? When did Trump say we were at the point of no return and we have to now go out there and do the right thing, etc.? Well, all of this comes again from the left-wing perception, and this too is repeated ad infinitum in the alt-right playbook, is that anything and everything the right does is for the goal of crushing the left. And by crushing, I mean eradicating. It's Holocaust, a transgender mass murder, all of that stuff. The worst excess you can possibly imagine. And any argument that that isn't happening is in fact an argument that it is happening. I know it sounds insane, but in essence, whenever the right says this isn't happening, they again assume you are lying and it is the opposite. Thus the idea that the right wing is saying all of the things that the left is saying, but even worse.
My argument is that people aren't taking this serious, and if they are taking it serious and they are meaning the words that they're saying and they're not joking, that is the problem.
Okay.
Everyone's joking though.
But everybody's not joking though. My concern is that
This too, by the way, during the early days of Gamergate, we had, like, again, the idea of Nazis were the worst things imaginable, and therefore it was an easy butt of a self-deprecating joke. It was like eating babies, something obviously hyperbolic and absurd that could be used for humor because nobody believed it was serious. The left then moved in and said, no, there is no such thing as a joke because I have already pre-assumed that anything and everything you say you don't mean, you actually do mean. I have come to this from the position that I believe you are a liar and an idiot and malicious and evil, and I will continue from that direction, keeping control of the narrative, as again the alt-right playbook would call it. But now on the left, they are doing the same thing. Oh, we are just joking. Are they, though? And this too, I'll point out, this is a lone wolf factory in essence. It is constantly putting forth the argument that everything is going terrible and that you should indeed radicalize, but oh, not in that way. We're not saying you should go out and do something. We're just saying that transgender people are being genocided today. We're just saying that Trump is a fascist dictator. And so on and so on. Not so much a dog whistle anymore as a foghorn, really.
that we are vastly approaching like point of no return in our own rhetoric within the community. And I think that it is being furthered by us not addressing it.
I'm forced to ask myself, how is this, if YouTube is going to kick off people like we've seen them kick off, why is this tolerated?
Thank you.
Now, Destiny 2, I don't believe, is Destiny on YouTube these days? I'm not entirely sure. He was kicked off Twitch, wasn't he? But this too, of course, comes down to the fact that the left and right do not play by the same rules on the majority of social media platforms, Twitter being pretty much the sole singular exception, and Twitter being that exception has also dragged some of the other platforms along with it, kicking and screaming every step of the way, even if the majority of the bans there, like for example on Twitch with Hassan Piker, are performative, and happens whenever he wants to have a week off, more so than anything else. As this also comes back to the idea of course, trying to have the higher ground position, to attempt to have the central and neutral, that anybody and everybody should be allowed to say whatever they wish to do and wish to purvey, communicate to their audience in the public space. This is a fundamental and foundational value upon which Western society was constructed, and one that we are still clinging to today for very good reasons, because it is the ideal. However, this is going to lead to more left-wing violence because the dog whistles will not stop. There is, I made point about this again and again, in the idea of escalation. The left has always been escalating. The right has tried to de-escalate and been punished for it time and time again, to the point where it is now in a position where the only reasonable option is to attempt to escalate in response to it, hoping that mutually assured destruction will in essence hammer home the point that you are actually not in charge, you cannot do whatever you want, and you must come back to the table for negotiations.
Yeah, Constantine.
I mean, we introduced new
weird-
things, so I don't know.
without
I don't know what the
violence?
monoculture is. I
Final
hear.
thoughts?
People are going to claim, yeah, but this guy's not famous. He's not, no one really knows who he is. That's why. But how is that even relevant?
It is not, because again, these are not his thoughts. These are not his talking points. These are all things he has heard from somebody else.
And
massive
multiculturalism,
under-
which have, instead of
Gosh,
creating
it's
a
launching.
monoculture into which people are encouraged to buy in and integrate, have instead created a society in which people are encouraged to see themselves as members of an individual community.
He fails to see that he is the very thing he thinks his opponents are.
About 40 died. But this is what I hate about these people is like they make a career, right? They make a career out of violent and aggressive politics and riling it up and stoking it up.
This too, again, I've said this like 3 times now, and it continues to be true. Everything the right says it isn't doing, the right is doing, in the opinion of the left wing. They are not the violent ones, they are not calling for violence or aggression, and they certainly are not raising the temperature, even as you can demonstrably see the opposite. This is indoctrination 101, the rejection of observable reality and the substitution of one pre-built for you.
So therefore we should take them out because they're riling things up. They're too full of hatred, so we should hate them.
And then they're like, oh, thank you for letting me discuss the ideas and ruining your fucking country with all this bullshit.
Oh, so they're ruining your country, but Constantine can't have concerns about people ruining his country.
No, because again, he doesn't have concerns. The position is simply Constantine is lying, and he doesn't understand what he's talking about. It is an more extreme version of repressive tolerance, of withholding, and I do mean this, any charitability, even the most basic charitability of maybe he believes what he is thinking from the opposition.
I think that concepts like England were created in order for monarchs to consolidate power in their kingdoms.
And if this continues, it will only get worse.
And this could have gone very differently. How do people get to the point of what you're saying in this video? Well, it all comes down to the laws of narrative. There's always going to be people that wish you harm. You just have to learn how to spot them. And if you're interested in these concepts, I do have a book coming out in August. I've been working on this for 2 years. I began writing it when I was still a high school teacher. It's meant to be more of a methodology. The reality is we have opponents every day. I want it to be that kind of book that people carry around in their bag and it's like wrinkled up because they're using it and it's all marked up with...
And this too. I'm sure this is a fantastic book, by the way, because individual thinking is something that we desperately do need. But individual thinking is not going to prevent any of this. It's not going to stop it, because this is not a person having individual thoughts. This is not a de-radicalization tool. This is something that you need to get to people before they get radicalized. And I do believe that might be the only option in the long run. Because once you get in, again, the position that is assumed here is that everything is at an end. The left went from absolute optimism, and even then, even when the left was thoroughly convinced it was winning, and it was opposed by a tiny group of infighting moron idiots that could not possibly gain any sort of cultural relevance whatsoever, the left-wing point and idea for dealing with them was still deplatforming, demonetization, debanking, oppression by the police, and violence if necessary. That was the baseline for when the left thought it was going to win. It shouldn't require too much in the way of imagination to see what they might think are the suitable and adequate alternatives when they believe they are losing. We are probably going to enter into an era of this kind of mass radicalization. The only question is, how widely spread is it actually? How many people have internalized this extreming left-wing view to the point where they too begin to think that violence is not only an acceptable solution, but the only solution? And again, there is no amount of online discourse that will de-radicalize them or discourage this at all, because they come into it with the assumption that the right is evil, that the left is good, and that it is the only framework for morality, ethics, and life that they need. We're probably going to need actual, massive reform of schooling systems to begin dealing with this. We are actually probably going to have to start reintroducing philosophy. And even then, of course, has obvious drawbacks, because somebody's going to have to teach those courses. But as it is right now, all of this, the entire murderous rage of it all, is all internally consistent with the worldview that the left wing has been pushing and presenting for a very long time, even as they project their own ideas onto their opponents. Like, in that little clip there, Destiny said that he wasn't sure he knew what a monoculture meant. Remember how I said the left assumes that the right is always lying, and it is only a debating tactic? Well, the best way to defeat the debating tactic of your opponent always lying is to do the same to them. As I don't think anyone believes that Destiny, who is, for all of his flaws, an intelligent person, doesn't know what a monoculture is. But I will have the full video on this, hopefully up next week, where I will not merely tell you these things, I will show you the left speaking the words, making it blatantly clear and obvious in their own language. As ridiculous as all this sounds, as horrific as it sounds, as damning and black-pilled as it sounds, I'm pretty sure it's actually real. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.